And BK is back, but as you can see, no moving images, still a problem with my editing software. I'm already glad that I can get some voice under there, and when I say voice I mean that very lightly, because you can hear my voice is going again as usual. Why am I here? Well, you know, in 1.14 in the Java edition, no, it's both in Java as Bedrock, I think, but I'm going to focus now mainly on Java. In 1.14 you can make God armor or God tier armor. What does that mean? That means that you can put the different kinds of protection on one piece of armor. Before 1.14 that was not possible, and starting from 1.14.3 that will be no longer possible. So that's why I made a little video now to explain to you how you can make God armor yourself in the most efficient way. I took some time to look into how combining different enchantments work, and I claim to have found the most efficient way to make all pieces of armor. And not just that, I can do the same thing with weapons and tools, but for now I'm going to focus mainly on the armor, because starting from 1.14.3 you will no longer be able to do that, and you want to do this now, because if you make it now in 1.14.2 or earlier and you take that with you in an update, you keep the armor and you can still use it. One thing that I need to tell you though, having such OP armor is completely useless. The advantage of having such armor is less big than you think. I'm just mentioning it. Here comes my little presentation. I brought my whiteboard, as you can see behind me. Let's just have a look. When I talk about efficiency, there are two different meanings of that. Firstly, you have the situation where you have the total amount of XP levels that you need to do all the enchantments. If you have that XP, then there is no use in looking further. You can just do the combinations as cheap as possible. You don't want to lose any of that XP that you already have. You want to use it to the maximum. So that's the first situation. In the second situation, you do not have all the XP, or you have possibly even zero. That means that you need to grind to do those special combinations. But as you surely know, leveling up from 0 to 10 is easier than leveling up from 10 to 20. So what you want to do is use all the XP that you have gathered immediately for an enchantment. Meaning, if you want to combine 2 books together and that will require 7 XP levels, then you don't want to go too far over that 7, because you will waste more time in grinding. Why go to 9 if you only need 7? This is just a very, very small thing, but it's efficiency. When I initially did my research on this subject, I noticed that there was a slight difference between both meanings of efficiency, but in the case of the pieces of armor, as I'm going to show you in this video, there isn't really a difference. Both the cheapest way of getting the armor is also the best way of getting each piece if you get the XP from grinding at the spot itself. It will all become clear once I show you my schedules. Before I tell you how to do it, there are a few reminders. Firstly, the books that you are going to use to combine need to be fresh. For example, if you need a protection 4 book, then you can't first combine 2 protection 3 books together to get a protection 4 book, because that will already cost you extra and might not be possible if you do that too much. So better have the books as fresh as you can, directly from a villager, as I always do. That's already a very important thing. But wait, there is more, and this is actually the BK from the future, because I'm adding this to the video. Since I made this video, I have been researching more, and I have found possibilities of working with books that not have the full maximum level for the enchantment. For example, I figured out a way to do it with books of Protection 3, for example. But I'm not going to put this in the video because, once again, the number of possibilities for combining the books becomes so big that I can't put all of the different schedules in this video. So I'm going to stick now with the main schedule for books that have the maximum level of enchantment. Secondly, the same thing actually goes for the armor pieces themselves. They need to be, I'm not going to say unenchanted, because if you can buy a piece of armor from a villager and there's already, let's say, aqua affinity on the helmet, then that doesn't count as an extra cost. Obviously, if you're in that situation, then you would need a completely different set of instructions, and I could give you those, but since there are so many separate ones, I'm not going to put them all in the video. But if you specifically want an explanation for your situation, you can always contact me and I will gladly explain you what you need to do to be as efficient as possible, because we're going for efficiency here. If you are in such a situation where you have, for example, a helmet that already has aqua affinity on it, you can also just use the grindstone to take away that enchantment, and then you can start with a clean brand new helmet, following the schedule that I will be showing you. For each piece of armor, I'm going to show you one way how to combine it in the most efficient way, but that doesn't mean that this is the only one. Let me take my notes. For example, in the case of boots, I found 2 unique ways of combining the enchantments without losing any of the maximum efficiency. For leggings and chest plates, there is only 1, but then again, for a helmet, there are 6 ways. And then I have swords, axes, and tools and such, but in this video I will stick only to the armor pieces. But what I'm trying to say here is that certain enchantments have the same costs if you want to combine them, and those are then interchangeable in what I'm going to show you. For example, Protection 4, Fire Protection 4, and Projectile Protection 4 each have the same costs. So you can switch those in the little schedule that I'm going to show you next. I'm just explaining this to you. You would never need it, because if you want to combine them, you've got all the books, and then I would just say, just follow my little schedule. Let's follow the BK way, and you'll be fine. But I'm just mentioning it so that you know it. And lastly, the 4th point, and that is important to some of you, I guess, in what I'm going to explain, you can still rename your pieces of armor if you want to give them a special name. I always do, because that's fun. The best is if you do the renaming as soon as you do the very first combination of your piece of armor with one of the books, because that is going to be the step which is the cheapest in that line. So it's all about efficiency. Let's start with the helmet. So all the enchantments that we need for the helmet are, and I will read them from left to right, starting after the helmet: Blast Protection 4, Thorns 3, Protection 4, Fire Protection 4, Aqua Affinity, Projectile Protection 4, Mending, Respiration 3, and Unbreaking 3. If you ever tried it, you can't put them all just like that on a helmet, because before you know it, combining becomes too expensive. You need to do the combinations in a certain order. And that is also where I have seen many YouTubers make a mistake. Some of them, even very respectable ones, claim that it's not possible to make god armor without starting with an armor piece that already has 1 or more enchantments on them. Well, they're wrong. Not only is this video going to prove it, you can find it out for yourself. Again, this is for the Java edition. On Bedrock, it works slightly different. Here we go. Firstly, you combine them 2 by 2 as shown in the schedule. Make sure that you keep the left book or the helmet in the left slot, and the other one in the right slot. Each of those combinations will cost you a few XP levels, and you can see that number in purple. If you see something different on your screen while combining, well, I'm sorry, I think you made a mistake in that case. For the next step, we're going to combine that helmet that we just made, so the helmet with Blast Protection 4 on it, with the book that we made, Thorns 3 and Protection 4. That will cost you 18 levels. And you do the same thing with the Fire Protection 4 and Aqua Affinity book, with the book with Projectile Protection 4 and Mending on it. We're going to keep the Respiration 3 and Unbreaking 3 book on the side just for a moment. In the next step, we combine that helmet that we just made and that book with those 4 enchantments on them once again, and that is again 18 levels of XP. And finally, we combine that helmet with that book that we had set aside for an additional 17 levels. If you look now at the total cost of this whole manipulation, it costs you 80 levels of XP. That is the absolute minimum for making a god helmet. And also, the step, or in this case the steps which were the most expensive, are the ones of 18. You never need more than 18 XP in your bar while making the combinations. So this is for when you're standing there at your grinder, grinding away, getting the XP as you go along. If you were to rename your item, I would suggest that you do it, as I said before, in the first step, meaning when you combine the helmet with the Blast Protection 4. Instead of 8 XP levels, it's going to cost you 9. But that is still the most efficient in this case. Then we go to the leggings and the chest plate, and here you've got the complete schedule of how you need to combine everything. I think it's clear by now that you know what to do. If it isn't clear, send me a message and I'll be glad you explained it. But you can just go back a little bit in the video to see how we did it with the helmet. It's the same principle. The total cost of making either the leggings or the chest plate is 60 XP levels. Again, this is the absolute minimum. I am pretty sure that there isn't one single way of doing it with less XP. And the most expensive step here is 14. You do that twice. Again, I would suggest, don't do the renaming in the first step. In this case, you should do it in the third step that you do with either the leggings or the chest plate, the one that says 11. The difference is just ever so slight. You could skip it, go ahead, do it in the first one, but I'm just telling you again, maximum efficiency. And then finally we get to the boots, same principle as the helmet. The schedule is about the same. The total cost of making the boots is 84 levels, and the most expensive step is 19 XP levels. The special thing with boots is if you want Frostwalker 2 on them instead of Featherfalling 4, you can just switch these in the schedule. It's not going to make any difference for the costs. Here again, do the renaming in the first step that you do with the boots. So if you combine boots with Blast Protection 4, the 8 becomes 9. That's the best way in this case. So that was my little presentation on how to get God armor. I got the idea to do all these calculations just yesterday actually, because I realized that 1.40.3 was coming up and I didn't have one of that silly OP armor. So I looked into that, and since I only have a simple grinder myself, we don't have zombie XP farm, because also if you know it, in 1.14 those broke. But that was for me a reason to look into the most efficient ways of getting God armor, if it was possible to start with, which I think I've proven now that it is definitely possible, and it's not as difficult as most YouTubers will make you believe. Well, I guess that's it for now. I think I'll be going back to the realm on which I'm playing. If you've got interest in joining, I'll put a link down in the description where you can apply to get whitelisted. We are always looking for new players. It's so much fun. Actually, we're going to do a dragon fight really soon. So if you apply now, you can join in and I will gladly sell you some god armor. Yeah, that's the BK way as well. But you're welcome. But for now, BK says bye.